Hi, I'm Bob. Welcome to the course on the solutions to each chapter in the textbook, Microeconomics Theory and Applications with Calculus, the 5th edition. I want to thank you for joining me in this course and practicing the exercises together. We have arrived at Chapter 5, Consumer Welfare and Policy Analysis. Keep up your good work and let's get started. Here's exercise 1.2. If the inverse demand function for toasters is P equals 60 minus Q, what is the consumer surplus if the price is 30? From the inverse demand function, we can calculate the quantity demanded at the price of 30. It is 30. The consumer surplus is the monetary difference between the maximum amount that the consumer is willing to pay and what the consumer actually pays for the good purchased. Consumer surplus is a dollar value measure of the extra pleasure the consumer receives from the transaction beyond its price. In the demand curve diagram, it is the area under the inverse demand curve and above the horizontal line at the price P equals 30 up to the quantity purchased, Q equals 30. It is the shaded area in the diagram. Let's solve exercise 1.3. If the inverse demand curve for radios is P equals A minus B times Q, what is the consumer surplus if the price is A over 2? It is a linear inverse demand function. The consumer surplus is the shaded area in the demand curve diagram. Let's find answers to exercise 1.4. The researchers estimated that a 5% postal price increase, such as the one in 2006, reduces postal revenue by $215 million and lowers consumer surplus by $333 million. Illustrate these results in a figure similar to that of figure 5.2 and indicate the dollar amounts of areas A and B in the figure. As the price increases from P1 to P2, the quantity demanded reduces from Q1 to Q2. The consumer surplus falls by the area A plus B, which equals $333 million. For the firm, its revenue was the area C plus D before the price change, and it was the area A plus C after the price change. The difference is the loss in revenue. Let's solve exercise 1.5. Use the facts in exercise 1.4. In part 1, the researchers estimated that the elasticity of demand for postal services is minus 1.6. Assume that the market has a constant elasticity of demand function, Q equals x times P to the power minus 1.6, where x is a constant. In 2006, the price of a first-class stamp went from 37 cents to 39 cents. Given the information in the problem about the effect of the price increase on revenue, calculate X. The firm's revenue, R, equals price times quantity demanded at that price. We know the revenue difference when the price increases. so we can calculate the parameter x. In part B, calculate the size of the triangle B corresponding to the lost consumer surplus. First, we have the demand function, from which we can calculate Q2. Then we calculate the area of A. Second, we integrate from P1 to P2 to the demand curve, which is the area of A plus B. Finally, the area of B is the difference between the above two areas. I use Stata to compute the integral. You can find the Stata commands for it in the description below. Let's go to exercise 1.6. Compare the consumer surplus effects between a lump sum tax and an ad valorem tax on all goods that raise the same amount of tax revenue. The specific tax rotates the budget line from L1 to L2. The optimal bundle changes from A to B. The corresponding reduction in consumer surplus is the blue shaded area. The demand curve D is the uncompensated demand. The lump sum tax shifts the budget line from L1 to LEV. The optimal bundle changes from A to C. The corresponding compensated demand curve is HEV, and the equivalent variation is the red shaded area, which is smaller than the loss in consumer surplus, the blue area. Therefore, the specific tax reduces consumers' welfare more than the comparable lump sum tax. Let's solve exercise 1.7. Two linear demand curves go through the initial equilibrium E1. One demand curve is less elastic than the other at E1. For which demand curve will a price increase cause the larger consumer surplus loss? As illustrated in the graph, the demand curve D1 is less elastic than D2. That is, the same percentage of price increase causes less percentage fall of quantity demanded for D1 than for D2. The price increases from P1 to P2. The consumer surplus loss is the area of A for the more elastic demand D2. The consumer surplus loss is the area of A plus B for the less elastic demand D1. In other words, a price increase causes a larger consumer surplus loss for the less price elastic demand. Thank you for solving the exercises with me today. See you tomorrow for the next part of Chapter 5. Goodbye. Thank you for watching this video and subscribing to my YouTube channel. See you next time.